Thanks for staying with us. The 2025 Nigerian budget has come under scrutiny following a report by Budget, a prominent civic tech organization which identified significant loopholes in the proposed budget. The report highlighted concerns over transparency, budget allocations, and unrealistic revenue projections that could undermine the country's economic stability. Budget's analysis pointed out discrepancies between the projected revenue and the actual capacity of the government to generate the funds, raising alarm about the feasibility of the budget's implementation. According to the report, the budget's reliance on overly optimistic revenue expectations, particularly from non-oil sectors, is problematic given Nigeria's history of struggling to meet revenue targets. The analysis also flagged issues with the allocation of funds to critical sectors such as education, healthcare, and infrastructure, which it described as insufficient to address the country's pressing challenges. Budget further noted that there is a lack of clarity on how certain funds will be utilized, leading to concerns about potential mismanagement and corruption. Budget has called on the Nigerian government to address these gaps by ensuring more realistic revenue projections and improving transparency in the budgetary process. The organization has urged lawmakers to thoroughly scrutinize the budget before approval to ensure it serves the best interest of the Nigerian people. Additionally, Budget emphasized the need for better accountability measures to prevent the misuse of public funds and promote effective governance. Our guest this morning is Joshua Osiyemi, Program Officer, Tracka. Good morning and welcome to the program, Joshua.
Yeah, good morning. It's a pleasure to be here.
Okay.
Thank you.
2025 budget. Let's first of all begin from 2024. How would you describe the performance of the 2024 budget? Even though we know that this it still has a long way to go, because they have said the 2024 budget still has till June for the implementation, the full implementation. But so far, how far?
Right. Thank you so much for that. Basically, we all know that as it stands, the National Assembly has extended the lifespan of the budget, of that 2024 budget, to June. And that's to tell you that there are quite a number of things they must have seen in the budget to make them take such a decision. One of which is the fact that in terms of the CAPEX, which is the capital expenditure, you will discover that we have not really gone far with the implementation of this. And of course, that will bring us to the fact that an extension of that is absolutely necessary. And that simply tells you what the priorities of the government really is. You know, the budget being the fiscal document which should guide the spending and earnings of the country in a particular year. I think for budget credibility, it is just right that there are releases on time, and then the speculations you have on what your revenues are going to be must be as realistic as possible. And absolutely, that must be one of the reasons why there has to be an extension from a budget that is meant to just to run from January to December has now been extended by another 180 days, which is from now to June. By implication, what that means is that this budget has to run concurrently with the budget that has been proposed already. Yes, thank you.
It's a problem. Well, I don't know. Maybe the experts will not see it as a problem. In 2024, almost like 4 budgets, if you permit me to say, were the ones that were being implemented. They had the carryover from the 2023 budget and the supplementary budget, and they had the 2024 budget and the supplementary budget. So it's like almost carrying 4 fruits to climb a tree. Yeah. Now they have these budgets carried over to 2025. And the extension has been given till June, which means maybe we are going to be implementing like 6 budgets in one, even though we say, okay, there are allocations to all these things and they're just tracking it and all that. But I don't know, is it not too much to carry at this moment? Will it not affect the implementation of the 2025 budget if this 2024 budget has not even been implemented half? because June shows that it's a half year, full half year for the implementation of the 2024 budget.
All right, so so this is it. So we are no longer doing 6 budgets as you have said. The 2023 budget itself, the actual Appropriation Act for 2023 and the supplementary budget for 2023 is gone. And so what we have now is the 2024 budget and its supplementary. And of course, the 2025 that we're all expecting, the outcome of what the National Assembly is going to be doing before the president eventually assents to that bill before it becomes a law. So it's definitely going to impair on the performances of the MDAs, absolutely, because an MDA that is still dealing with a particular year's budget that has not fully implemented all of this. So how do you now want to now bring in other budgets from another year, into play? Definitely, it's going to impair on the activities, and I think this is not too good for the country. It's not too good for us. Of course, it is not impossible to do. We have done it in the past, just like you mentioned. 2023 budget itself is supplementary, 2024, and of course you want to attribute what is happening now to the carryover of what we had in 2023, because they had too much to chew in their mouths, and possibly that's why we still have the budget performance being maybe at 25% or thereabout. Of course, the personnel and the recurrent expenditure, the personnel and overheads, those ones performed well, given the fact that they are for salaries and wages and for day-to-day running of MDAs as respectively. So the capex actually really is the issue, and I believe that it is not just good for the country. It's not good at all. Yeah.
What is it that hinders the performance of budgets? Because 25% is really small. Why can't Nigeria, for the past so many years, the Nigerian budget, I don't know if it has ever reached 50% implementation, and I wonder why this always happens. We're expecting a budget that, okay, it will be implemented up to maybe 80 or 85%, but we've not reached 50% for a very, very long time. What are some of these factors that we are supposed to look at? What are we not doing right?
All right. So you wanted to look at issues like early presentation of the budget, for example. One major issue that has happened this 2025, in this 2025 proposed budget, is the extremely late presentation of the budget. And you will know that in the last 25 years, it has never been this late, that the president is going to be presenting the budget to the National Assembly on December 18th, about maybe 13 days to the end of the year, that's not good enough for a budget you are expecting to perform very well. Early presentation of the budget is very key, and of course you still bear in mind the fact that you have festivities amidst all of this. You are presenting a budget about 7 days to Christmas. Are you not expecting the National Assembly to also go on their own breaks? So all of this, and you are expecting that MDAs will come around to present their own budget and to defend what they already have in the budget before it is eventually assented to, and then what's it called, legislated over before being assented over there by the president. So early presentation of the budget is very key. It is one thing that must be taken seriously. And as a matter of fact, I want to believe that there should be a legislation that sets out deadlines for the government on when exactly this budget should be presented to the National Assembly. Because if there are no laws that actually stipulate when the budget should come to the National Assembly, of course, we will always continue to have this kind of loopholes. So that's one. Another thing is the priority of the government. The budget performances will always tell you what exactly is the priority of this government. And simply put, it just tells us that we're not setting our priorities right, because if the funds, another thing is the revenue, because we have unrealistic projections most of the times, and this is not always very helpful to the budget performance eventually. So this put together and some other factors are some of the reasons why we have low performance of the budget in a particular fiscal year.
But what's the craze about presenting a budget at the end of the year that will start a new budget starting in January? What's the craze about it? What's the advantage of it? Because I think one of the reasons why we have problems implementing the budget is budgets are presented and then a new administration comes almost in the middle of the year, and they will now start to look at that budget and start to make some changes that will align with what they intend to do in that administration. And so we begin to have a problem there, and until the 4 years, we find these problems going on. So what's the real advantage of having to present a budget in December so that, or maybe November, so that you start implementation from January? Because I think if a budget is presented at the time where a new administration, when it comes in, will have its own inputs to the budget before it is presented to the National Assembly, some of these problems might be solved. So let me know the marked advantages of starting the implementation of a budget from January to December and not from where an administration is likely to take over.
All right. So government in itself is a continuum. It doesn't happen except
on paper. Yes.
Of course, you can say that. On paper, of course, you can say that, but that's the ideal thing that should be actually. Government is meant to be a continuum where a particular administration stops. One administration should be able to take it up from there and run with what you already have on ground, which is exactly meant to be the case. But that may not actually be the case in
Nigeria
most times.
Yeah.
And of course, what we have in Nigeria as well. So the benefit of getting to start the budget early enough in the year is there are some enormous. One of which is you getting to, of course, this budget performance we're talking about is very key. It is one of the benefits of starting your budget presentation as early as possible. As a matter of fact, nothing stops us from starting the budget process from maybe the end of September, for example. You do budget circular, budget envelopes around the MDAs. Let them go around the MDAs and bring them back to the executive, of course, to the president to the budget office before it is now being presented to the National Assembly. By September, nothing stops us from starting this whole process from June of the current year. You are already preparing for the budget of another year. Nothing stops us from being able to do that.
Yeah, well, because I was just thinking that,
and some of the issues with this is that it hampers on the development plan of the country, because these budgets are meant to actually address certain issues in the country, and if they are not implemented, it simply means that we are being dragged backward. So we are not being able to achieve. And considering the exchange rate, for example, what you were able to do with maybe 100 billion in 2022 or 2023, you cannot do in 2024. So, and one of the reasons why the budget has really gone up in Naira terms as such, so this whole thing hampers on the development agenda of the country.
It's all right.
And as such, it should be taken seriously.
It's all right, Joshua. I just thought the political year begins in May. So just like the educational year begins in September and all that. So 1 year, you begin to count from September first term, and then you're going back to September to make it 1 year.
Of course.
So the political year,
being able to do that,
if the political
well,
year is starting in May, nothing stops the fiscal year from starting in May as well. But that is matter for another day.
Nothing stops it. Yeah.
Okay, so now the 2025 budget is the real crux of the matter, and according to reports, there are so many loopholes that have been identified in this 2025 budget. In fact, in the hearings, I don't know if I will call that, in the budget defense, we are seeing almost every committee saying that the money that was allocated to any of these ministries was not enough. For instance, the Defense Ministry, they are saying it's not enough. The Ministry of Livestock, they say it is not enough, and so many other ministries and all that. But let's identify these loopholes that that are in the 2025 budget and see what should be done to correct that.
All right. Ministries and MDAs generally talking about inadequate funding. So this budgets were not made for them. They all made their budget by themselves, as expected. Because you also give them inputs into all of this budget. So you coming up to say that as much as I know, there's never been any time that any agency of the government has come to defend and said we have sufficient budget or we have over sufficient budget in this year. What you get to hear from most of them will always be this budget is not sufficient. And of course, the government must also be able to set its priority right. You have a place like the Ministry of Niger Delta, for example, which houses the development commissions, having about 2.6 trillion to itself. So what is that supposed to cater for? This should be well spelled out, and so that it guides what everybody's going to be tracking in the country, because you will be able to now say, okay, this is what this is meant for, and then can we actually trace if this was actually implemented or not. Basically, I don't want to believe that this budget is insufficient. It's just how you set out to ensure that they are well utilized, that all matters. The president has called this the budget of security and all of that. And of course, you expect that being the budget of security and all of that, the security architecture of the country should be getting the larger chunk of the budget, and which is actually the case in this year. The Ministry of Defense and Security is actually the one that is leading. So it is going to be quite shocking to know that, and almost everything has jacked up, including their personnel cost. So so this tells you that the question of inadequacy and all of that, I don't know where that is coming from. It is just about them being able to set their priorities right and ensure that this budget actually counts eventually.
So what are the loopholes that we find in the 2025 budget?
Oh, the loopholes are quite a number of them. You have the unrealistic projections as well. You have 2.6 million barrels of oil production per day. Of our what's it called now? The refineries, have they started operations optimally? Even the Port Harcourt refinery that is working now, is it at the optimal level? What is the plans that we have with the other refineries in the country, other 3 refineries in the country? We have FX, we have foreign exchange put at 1,500 naira. What is the current rate? What is the current reality we have on ground? And all of these things are going to be hampering on the budget performance eventually. So that is one on unrealistic projections. You have quite a number of other stuffs like the what's it called, the obscurity you have in the budget itself. Talk about the GOEs, about 60 of them. You're not even sure of the lump sum that has been allocated to them. What's for? What are these going to be doing? All of this put together. You have the Ministry of Niger Delta that I mentioned earlier, which is going to be catering that, and that's another issue on itself. But let's even leave that aside. You have the Ministry of Niger Delta having about 2.6 trillion as personnel cost. When you have the ministry, a Ministry of Interior, for example, that is managing about 4 different security architecture. You have the immigration, you have the fire service, you have the National Correctional Center, and you have the Customs Service, and this is just getting about 683 billion or thereabouts. So that tells us that that there are lots of things that has to be done, and of course, you have the projection of $75 dollars per barrel. I mean $75 for oil.
Yeah.
And all of this. Of course, that is very close, given the current reality. But we're just hopeful that the National Assembly is not going to be increasing this, because they can also hide under this caveat to say the projection is not realistic, and because of that, they want to increase it to maybe 18% $80, and thereby having that loopholes to be able to also have their own insertions into the budget, and this is not the first time that's going to be happening. So we're just waiting to see what comes out of this budget at the end of the day.
What are some of the realistic projections you would have loved to see? For instance, they're talking about 1,500 naira to the dollar, and you're saying that may not be realistic enough. They're saying $75 per barrel of crude. You're saying that may not be realizable. And even the number of barrels that we are producing, we're even now having a shortfall. We used to have like 1.8 million, and they were looking at 3 million barrels per day of production. Okay, so what are some of these realistic ones in terms of the exchange rate, in terms of the sale of crude and all that you would have loved to see, that would have made you believe more in the success of this 2025 budget?
So the current reality actually is that how much the dollar to naira now, so putting it at 1.5, for me personally, I don't see it as workable, even though it is close to it. I think it is just fair to leave it, of course, and it also puts the government on its toes to try as much as possible to ensure that they bring this together, but. There's definitely, of course, and the budget still has its deficits, definitely already, So this is just going to be increasing the debt gap in the country, and that's the reality. So, but for me, 1,600 for exchange rate is still fair, and maybe $70 for the price of oil is still very. Of course, I just mentioned to you that. The current price is about 70 to 72, so that is still very fair. It's still fair. But in terms of the exchange rate, I think it should be around 1,600 or thereabout. Yeah.
There are some critical projects that seem to be missing in the 2025 budget. If the stories are true, that means the coastal road from Lagos.
So I missed that.
Yes. The coastal road from Lagos to Calabar and all that.
Lagos, Calabar, coastal. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what does this portend? If there are some critical infrastructure that are not captured in the budget, what do you think this means for the overall implementation of performance of the budget 2025?
It has a lot of grave implications on the economy of the country. Definitely, everything that the government is going to be spending on in a particular fiscal year must be appropriated. And then the question comes, of course, the Lagos Calabar Coastal Road has its other issues coming to procurement and all of that, but we are not even talking about now. The same happened in 2024, and it's repeating itself in 2025 again. And that's to tell you that there are other things, if it suffices, if it pulls through to ensure that to happen that it is going to be implemented. It is going to continue. What that implies is that there are other budget line items that are going to suffer for it. So eventually, some of the line items will not also be coming on board as a result of the fact that this other project, the Lagos Calabar Coastal Road, has to continue. And this is absolutely wrong, because everything that the government has in plan has to be appropriated. It is just right that you have everything on paper, and of course we all know that what you have on that project is not a small amount. So definitely a substantial part of the budget is going to be heavily affected if this pulls through. That's the simple meaning. Yeah.
It's all right. So, well, we'll still be looking at this budget. We'll be tracking it, and we'll also be depending on your organization, Tracka, to get more information about this 2025 budget. Since it has not been passed and there's still discussion going on, that means we too will also be our eyes will be on them, as we say, to see how.
So this is not just even about the Lagos Calabar coastal road alone. You also have the presidential jet, that was procured as well. That is also there, So let's just hope and believe that the performance of this budget is going to be high. But the current realities is that it is just over ambitious. As far as I'm concerned, yeah.
Okay, exactly. So we'll still be looking and scrutinizing and seeing how it goes. And we're hoping that it will work out for the best for the entire Nigerian population. Would like to thank you, Joshua, for your time this morning. It's been a pleasure having you.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure being on your program.
We've been talking with Joshua Osiyemi, a program officer, Tracka. We'll be looking at the 2025 budget. We started actually in 2024. Its performances and some of the things that made that performance not to be as high as it should be. And we'll still be looking at the 2025 budget because it has not been passed right now. There's still defense going on in the National Assembly. Be that as it may, we hope that Nigerians will benefit from it. We'll take a short break. When we return, we'll be x-raying the statement of a senator that says that subsidy removal is the best thing to happen to Nigeria. Stay with us.